1954. The Isle of Man. The deadliest, most ruthless motorcycle race on the planet. When an unknown crew from Asia pushed what looked like rolling scrap metal to the starting line, the old guard European titans in the grandstands erupted into deafening laughter. People whistled, some even threw half-eaten apple cores at them. To the European aristocrats who ruled the track, this squad of Asians without a single sponsor logo wasn't just a joke. They were a bunch of lunatics with a death wish. But they had no idea that the short, wild-eyed man standing in the center of the team was harboring a massive, filthy plan for revenge. This was a man who had been tossed out like garbage by Japan's most colossal automotive empire, Toyota. Toyota's executives had pointed right at his face and humiliated him in front of everyone. You don't know the first thing about making cars. You'll only ever be a bottom-feeding blacksmith. But he didn't just survive that humiliating winter. Years later, he built monster after monster, violently tearing through Toyota's defenses and embarrassing the entire Western auto industry in the process. This isn't your cliché rags-to-riches story. This is the blood-soaked myth of a madman and the extreme, borderline psychotic lengths he went to in order to drive the very people who stepped on him to the brink of destruction. Let's rewind to 1937. Before he became a terrifying global legend, Soichiro Honda was just a grease-covered, middle-school dropout working as a bottom-tier mechanic. But he had a sickness: absolute, unchecked ambition. Desperate to jump the class divide, he risked everything. He mortgaged his belongings, sold off his wife's jewelry, and bet it all on a rundown factory making engine piston rings. His one and only target? The rapidly expanding business empire of Toyota. To secure Toyota's exclusive contract, Soichiro locked himself in his lab. For 9 straight months, he hammered metal day and night. When he was exhausted, he slept on the freezing concrete floor. When he was starving, he scarfed down cold rice. Finally, with his hands covered in blood and scars, he delivered 30,000 piston rings he believed were absolute perfection. He was dead set that this was his golden ticket to high society. Instead, reality delivered a lethal blow inside Toyota's lavish quality control lab. The executives barely looked at him. After a ruthless spot check, they tossed 29,950 of his rings at his feet like trash. Their verdict was arrogant and utterly degrading. Maybe 50 of these are passable. The rest is just worthless industrial waste. You don't understand metallurgy, you don't understand tolerances, and you have no business being in our supply chain. Toyota unceremoniously cut all ties and kicked him out. That snowy winter, Soichiro went completely bankrupt. His factory folded, and he ended up hospitalized from severe overwork and a total mental breakdown. For months, he was the laughingstock of the entire auto industry. Everyone whispered behind his back, calling him a delusional bottom feeder shooting way out of his league. Everyone told him, "Accept your fate. Your ceiling in this life is patching leaky tires for other people." Any sane person hit with a reality check that hard would have jumped off a building or quietly found a job on an assembly line. But Soichiro was a pure, unadulterated fanatic. His pride was shattered, but the venom of revenge had started pumping through his veins. Post-World War II Japan was a wasteland. The economy had completely collapsed. Gasoline was more expensive than gold, and even the basic trains stopped running because of coal shortages. While digging through trash in the black market, Soichiro locked eyes on a pile of abandoned military surplus. Tiny, two-stroke generators the U.S. military used to power portable radios. To everyone else, it was scrap metal destined for the furnace. But in Soichiro's revenge-fueled brain, a highly destructive plan was born. He ruthlessly rigged these micro-generators to ordinary bicycles using wire and cheap screws. Without proper gas tanks, he literally used his wife's old rubber hot water bottles to hold the fuel. He dubbed this metal Frankenstein, which looked like it could spontaneously combust at any second, the bata bata, for the sound it made. Was this car manufacturing? Hell no. It was an absolute desecration of modern industrial design. Legit automakers looked at this soot-spewing piece of junk and laughed their asses off. But then something bizarre and crazy happened. In a post-war era where people barely had the energy to walk and transportation was paralyzed, this highly efficient, broken toy, which allowed black market merchants to zip all over town, sold like crazy. Orders snowballed. Black market cash piled high on his desk. Riding on a pile of scrap metal despised by the establishment, the man Toyota had sentenced to death crawled his way out of hell. With massive capital in hand, a normal entrepreneur would buy land, build factories, and play it safe. Not Soichiro. He immediately made a decision that convinced Japanese bureaucrats and automakers alike that he had completely lost his damn mind. He wasn't just going to build real motorcycles. He was going to build the fastest, most violently powerful engines in the world. He wanted to blow past the untouchable European heavyweights on RPMs alone. The Japanese auto giants scoffed in their exclusive country clubs. A lowly blacksmith who couldn't even make a piston ring is threatening to teach us about core powertrains? An even deadlier blow came from the government. To protect their golden children, Toyota and Nissan, Japan's Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, prepared draconian laws designed to legally ban garage operations, like Honda, from building cars or heavy motorcycles. Faced with a joint execution squad of government and corporate giants, Soichiro didn't bribe anyone. He didn't bow down. He stormed straight into the MITI headquarters, pointed his finger right at the smug bureaucrats, and let them have it. You government hacks can't even make a single screw, so who the hell are you to teach me how to build cars? All you idiots do is strangle innovation. To build an engine that could crush everything in its path, he became a terrifying tyrant on the shop floor. He mortgaged his newly recovering factories to the bank just to buy imported machine tools. He screamed at engineers who made mistakes. If he saw a defective part, he'd hurl a heavy metal wrench right at the worker. In his bloodshot eyes, there was absolutely zero room for compromise. He had one violently strict standard: absolute performance domination. That is exactly why, after countless blown cylinders and bitter failures, he appeared like a demon on the Isle of Man TT track mentioned at the start. He bet his entire livelihood on the most dangerous race in the world. He didn't show up to compete. He showed up to host a public execution. Their first time out, they failed miserably due to a lack of experience and were mocked globally as country bumpkins. But that didn't break him. It fully unleashed his inner beast. Soichiro took that humiliation home, tore his engines down to the bolts, and mercilessly pushed every mechanical component to its absolute limit, redlining the engines to an unthinkable 14,000 revolutions per minute, a number the Europeans couldn't even fathom at the time. Until 1961, when Team Honda returned to the grid. This time, the laughter in the stands died the exact second the green flag dropped. Honda's four-stroke bikes unleashed an ear-piercing, terrifying howl that sounded like a fighter jet ripping through the sky. Like a pack of unleashed red demons, they used pure, dominating horsepower and terrifying cornering speeds to sweep the top 5 spots in both the 125 cubic centimeters and 250 cubic centimeters classes. The aristocratic European teams couldn't even catch their exhaust fumes. They could only watch helplessly as these former Asian nobodies looted every single trophy. But for Soichiro, dominating motorcycles was just an appetizer. His poison-laced blade of revenge was finally pointed squarely at Toyota, the company that threw him out, and every arrogant Western auto giant. In 1970, the U.S. government rolled out the Clean Air Act, the strictest environmental law in history, demanding a 90% reduction in auto emissions. The moment it dropped, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, and even Japan's Toyota went into full despair mode. The Detroit Titans marched up to Capitol Hill to cry about it, with GM's CEO publicly swearing, "With current physics and human technology, it is fundamentally impossible to build an engine that meets these standards. This act will destroy the auto industry." While the global auto giants were throwing a collective tantrum and protesting, Soichiro sat across the Pacific, reading the newspaper, and laughed out loud. "You can't build it? Watch me." He led his crew of engineers, who he had tortured to the brink of insanity, and rolled out the top-secret CVCC engine. And he shoved it into a tiny, completely unassuming, cheap little car called the Civic. When the EPA tested it, not only did it pass the impossible emissions test flawlessly without using a stupidly expensive catalytic converter, but it casually snagged first place in fuel economy while doing it. But Soichiro didn't think that was satisfying enough. It wasn't enough to humiliate the big three. So, he pulled off one of the most arrogant, cold-blooded flexes in business history. Using his own money, he bought a big-block Chevrolet muscle car, the pride and joy of General Motors, and air-freighted it to Japan. He ordered his engineers to brutally saw off GM's factory cylinder heads and force Honda's CVCC system onto the block. Then, he shipped this Frankenstein Chevy back to the States and swaggered right into the EPA for testing. The results shook Wall Street to its core. This American muscle car, running on Honda tech, cleared the Emissions Act with ease. Soichiro used GM's own car to slap the CEO of GM across the face, proving that the technology wasn't impossible. The arrogant giants were just incompetent. Watching their market share bleed out and seeing Honda Civics flood the streets, you have to wonder if the executives at Toyota and GM ever woke up in a cold sweat, remembering the starving, bottom-feeding blacksmith they threw out into the snow all those years ago. Soichiro Honda, through his wildly psychotic life, proved the most dangerous business truth to the world. When everyone, the giants, the establishment, even the government, thinks you're a lunatic, that might just be the perfect time to burn down the old rules and rewrite the world order. He didn't rely on the pity of megacorporations or the warmth of venture capital. He relied on unhinged arrogance and a bone-deep, relentless thirst for revenge. So, the next time you see a Honda cruise down the street, remember, it's not just a commuter car. It's a ringing, heavy backhand across the face of the arrogant elite and industry titans. If it were you, after being thoroughly humiliated by your biggest rival, stepped on, and stripped of your very hope for survival, would you bow your head and accept your fate? Or would you, like this mad blacksmith, bet absolutely everything to tear down their entire empire? Tell me your answer in the comments.